Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus Reports. And this is Ben and Barry on football.
Hello out there. This is Ben Dickerson, your co-host for the show. It's almost football season, folks. In fact, a lot of people would say it is football season. The first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game, will be played tonight. But for today's show, we're going to get into the defensive backfield groups of every NFL team. We're going to start with number 32, work our way up to number 16. And then next week, we're going to handle the top 15. I'm going to find this very interesting. We got a lot of good information. You're going to hear a lot of names you know. You're going to hear some names that you don't know, but you will be hearing about during the season. Also, just let me quickly remind everybody, these rankings come from Pro Football Focus. I am not 100% in agreement with the rankings, but they're pretty close to what I would say they should be. So that being said, I'm ready to rock, Barry. What you got?
One of the things I want to mention, Ben, Pro Football Focus just came out with their power rankings for the teams going into the season, which, as you know, we use the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, which actually take the points that are actually produced in season. So we don't necessarily come up with a preseason power rankings. So it'll be interesting. But the information that we have put out so far, let's take a quick look back. Okay, we're doing defensive backs today. We did the D line, the O line, the linebackers, the running backs, the QBs, the tight ends. We did the wideouts yet?
Wideouts will be the last one.
Wideouts coming up. So my point being that for those of you who have been watching Ben and Barry on football and taking notes, you can put your own power ranking together now.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, you
right
can.
there.
Take the rankings of every position group, put them together, and you can come up with your own ranking. You are absolutely correct.
And I'm wondering about you guys, like in fantasy. Now you have your own, fantasy has its own way of ranking, but if you know the defensive backfields, like we're going to show it to you, you might want to change your defense to make the matchup a little bit more. Would I venture to say I don't want to give out no fantasy advice. I'm the Madden guy. You're the fantasy guy. You tell me. I'm asking.
No, but you're onto something there. And I would say on the surface, the first thing a fantasy person might want to take note of as we go through these rankings is the movement of players from one team to another. There's a lot of free agency movement as far as defensive backs are concerned. So that defense that you might have been thinking about, I might want to get those guys before my fantasy draft is over. You may want to rethink it. And there may be a defense that you feel is probably going to be better than you thought because of some moves that were made, maybe a nice rookie that got picked up or whatever. So yes, indeed, that is important. And especially when you talk about defensive backs, because defensive backs account for a lot of turnovers, which is how you get defensive points in fantasy. Fumble recoveries, interceptions, very big in fantasy. And D-backs and linebackers probably get the most of those, especially interceptions. So, yep, you're right.
Now, Ben, we had a bit of a discussion about some of the information that I was going to bring, which has more to do with contracts and things of that nature. And, the question is, would the average, fan be interested in that? And, I don't know. But I do know this much, and this is what's kind of ironic about this, because me being the Madden guy, the one part of Madden that I probably do least is the whole thing where you act as the GM and you trade contracts and you make trades and all of that. I'm about, the pass, the run. I'm playing that game hard, but I don't really get into that too much. But that part of it, the contracts, the free agency, I've already kind of said I need to look at that a little bit closer. Apparently, this is a big part of the game for a segment of Madden people, you know, that I'm not really well in touch with. I'll admit, you know what I mean? Because I don't really do that. And that might be online. Some of that might be how, you know, when they're having these tournaments, this guy has a team put together with his contracts. I don't know how far they go with that. But I do know this much. It is interesting, I always find, to be able to look at the contract, kind of where it is now. Is it a one-year deal? Is it a multi-year deal? To see what kind of guaranteed money, to see whether or not this is a guy who's going to have to perform, because for the money they're paying him, if he don't, they're going to be regretting that they paid him that much. Like they did not get what they expected to get. There's some outsized contracts. And then some teams have invested a lot of money that you might not have thought, okay, that they actually put that much money into their defensive backfield. I thought some of that was interesting. So I'm going to throw some of those nuggets out. Won't be as much a bigger part as what you're going to do, because you're going to actually talk about how well they play, how well they perform together as a unit, you know, and a bit of a perspective on what you might expect, you know, in the coming season. So, you know, it's going to be a good mix of information, both on field football information and another level of the type of information, the contract, because I know I told my daughter one time, I said, you know, when you're trying to solve a mystery, you want to make sure you check two tracks. You want to look down the track of the money and sex. So somebody's dead all of a sudden. Check the money, check the sex. You'll usually come up with something in that realm.
I've heard the whole follow the money theme quite often. So yeah, the sex part, I don't know, depends.
Dude, let me tell you, you know, how many times have you heard that, you know, the guy just shot the boyfriend 5 times? You know what I mean? There's, you know, I follow the sex, you know, as the other boyfriend, you know, former boyfriend. So in any event, in this mystery, the money part is what we're really talking about. And I really think that has something to do with the motivations of the GM, the owner, those people. So let's get kicking it off here. Ben, it's always bittersweet to name the 32nd team, the last place team in any of these groupings. We didn't say it. Pro Football Focus said it. Who is it?
It is the Atlanta Falcons, which I think comes as no surprise to anybody. The Atlanta Falcons secondary was really a mess last season. Obviously, it had to be addressed. I believe that they have tried to address it, but considering the fact that they're still ranked as number 32 with Pro Football Focus, I don't know how successful they're going to be at addressing this issue. But what they did right off the bat is they will probably start 2 free agent signees at safety. One would be Eric Harris, who came over in free agency from the Raiders. Here's the problem with that. He played for the Raiders. He's been on the Raiders since 2017, but he was never a primary starter until 2019. That could be an issue. Deron Harmon was a part-time starter for the Patriots. Then he was traded to the Lions, where he became a first-time starter or a full-time starter for the first time. And now he left in free agency and is now with the Falcons. So you got 2 starters at free and strong safety who don't have much starting experience, although they do have some years in the league. At cornerback, AJ Terrell just came off of a pretty lackluster rookie season, so they plugged him in as a rookie last year. He did not play as well as expected. And third-year guy, Kendall Sheffield, is going to have to play better also. So you got a couple free agents coming in that have some years under their belts, but are just becoming starters. You have a couple of young guys who they're expecting a lot more out of, but are only going to be in their maybe second or third year. It's going to be a tough year for this group. It's going to be a really tough year.
All right. Well, as far as this group is concerned, highest paid contract, and again, when I'm talking money here, I'm talking about the cap hit money. So that's, you know, that's more like what they pay. That might not actually be the cash that the player received specifically, but it is the cap hit to that team. So highest cap hit on this was AJ Terrell, 3.2 mil. Isaiah Alvarez at 2.5. They have a $10.6 million backfield, averaging 1.7 million. So that's your 32nd place group. Let's go to number 31.
31, again, is no surprise. It's the Dallas Cowboys, another secondary that was in complete disarray last season. Total mess. The incumbents at cornerback are Trayvon Diggs and Anthony Brown. We'll talk about Anthony Harris later, but Anthony Brown. Second and third round picks, Kelvin Joseph and Nashawn Wright, will compete for starting jobs with those guys. So the incumbents do not have the position nailed down. We got draft picks, one in the second round, one in the third round, that are going to come right in and compete. So if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you might want to keep up with training camp talk with those guys, because there's going to be a lot of competition going around. And let's face it, when you have a squad that needs a lot of improvement, you got to give everybody a chance. A second and third round draft picks are still fairly high draft picks. So they're going to give these guys an opportunity to try to come in and win the jobs. Strong safety is Donovan Wilson, and free safety is DeMont Kazee. They'll start at the safety positions, pretty sure about that. At the end of the day, Dan Quinn is the new defensive coordinator. So he's got a lot of work to do. He'll probably come in there with a fresh scheme for him at least and see what happens. But guys are definitely competing for jobs. So I would say just the presence of all this opportunity to win starting jobs should elevate this secondary just a bit. Just because guys are going to really want to play hard and compete for the jobs. So it's more on Dan Quinn than anything else. He's got to come up with a scheme that fits his talent. So he's got to let everything shake out in training camp, take the best guys.
The Cowboys have an $11.3 million group there. Not one of the highest paid groups. Anthony Brown is actually the highest paid of the group. Kelvin, Nashawn, Trayvon, Anthony Brown, Donovan Wilson, and DeMonte at 5.7 million. You said Donovan Wilson and DeMonte were those safeties?
That is correct.
So DeMonte is at 987,000 and Donovan is at 881. So these are not highly paid players. So again, they're gonna, if they get that high level of play, that's gonna be great value. But they didn't exactly go out and spend a whole bunch of money on those safeties.
Which is why those guys are probably gonna walk right in and start. The competition is at corner.
Okay.
So they like their safeties. They like the safeties. Those safeties jobs are pretty much safe. It's the corners they didn't like. And those are the high draft picks that they made. Well, I'm saying high, second and third round, but you know, it's not sixth round. So they're expecting those guys to come in and compete. So most of the competition will be at cornerback.
All right. Who's up next?
Up next, we have the Detroit Lions. We're at number 30 here. Okay. So second-year player Jeff Okudah, who started as a rookie, and Quentin Dunbar, who came over in free agency from Seattle. Those two guys will start at cornerback. Those are the best options right now, unless somebody outplays somebody in camp. Neither one of them played extremely well last year. That's the only thing, but they're looking for bounce backs from both of them. Free safety is Tracy Walker, and the strong safety will be Will Harris, and they're both going to need to improve. So only one guy came over in free agency. they like the group they have. They're going to continue to work with these guys. They're all fairly young. So yeah, I would venture to guess before you even get into the money that the Lions didn't spend very much. But you know, that's what some teams do. They got a young group. They think they have room for improvement. They're going to wait on them and see what they can do.
Well, they had 13.9 million for that group. However, Jeff Okudah is 7.6 million of that 13. So he's about almost over half right there. The rest of the group is under a million, except for Tracy Walker and Will Harris at 2.4 and 1.1. So,
well, they're expecting a lot out of Okudah. He was a excuse me. He's coming into his third season. Excuse me. He's coming into his third season, and he started right away as a rookie. So they obviously like this guy. He's going to be the mainstay back there. So it makes sense that he makes the most money.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. Who's up next?
Up next, number 29, we have the Las Vegas Raiders.
The Raiders.
Yes, the Raiders. The Raiders had some significant losses last season due to poor secondary play. I'm talking about primetime television. Everybody's watching bad losses on pass plays due to mix-ups and deficiencies in their secondary. And the first thing Pro Football Focus will tell you is these guys are really young. Trayvon Mullen is only coming into his third year, and Damon Arnett, who was a first-round selection last year. He was first-round selection last year. They'll both start at corner, okay? So both those guys, extremely young. Let's see. Casey Hayward was a free agent is a free agent from the Chargers. He will probably start at one of those corner spots. Strong safety is Jonathan Abram. He's been around for a little bit, but not long. He's coming into his third year, in fact. Free safety is Trayvon Moehrig. He's a rookie. I believe he was a first-round pick. So these guys are extremely young. I think I've heard several people say that they expect the Raiders to be better offensively. But as far as their secondary is concerned, they're going to stick with the young guys. And you're going to probably hear this theme a few more times, where they just have young athletic players that just have to either settle in on the scheme, or the defensive coordinator is going to have to scheme around the talent of the players, but they're going to stick with the young guys and try to roll with them. So that's what the Raiders are going to do.
The Raiders total about 13 mil for that backfield. And one of the things I'm noticing is that they're pretty well even in terms of how they're paying that backfield. Jonathan Abram and Damon Arnett are a little over 3 million. Trayvon and Casey Hayward are, Trayvon's just under 2, and Casey's 2.5, and Trayvon Moehrig is 1.4. The lowest paid of that group is Carl Joseph at 987,000. So they have a nice evenly paid group there. And probably, if you said they're young, they might have a lot of those rookie contracts still in vogue, things of that nature. So that'll be interesting to see how they gel, as a group. That's what it's going to be about for them. All right, who's up next?
Up next, number 28 is the New York Jets. Now, the New York Jets have a brand new head coach coming over from San Francisco. That is Robert Saleh. If you know anything about Robert Saleh, he was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. So I'm going to assume he will handle most of the defensive coaching for the New York Jets, even though he is the head coach. Let me tell you, he's going to have his hands full. There's a dearth of talent on this team in the secondary. Bryce Hall and Blessewin Austin are very young, and both are very inexperienced. Strong safety is Ashton Davis. He's also just coming into his second year. The real only bright spot on this team is at free safety. Marcus May played really well after Jamal Adams left. So They leaned on Jamal Adams a lot. Jamal Adams played strong. May played free. Jamal Adams took a lot of pressure off him, but when they traded Jamal Adams, this kid really stepped up. So Marcus May is the bright spot. The other safety spot, I'm not even sure who's going to take that spot. The corner spot is severely inexperienced. Jets are going to have problems. They're going to have problems. We're going to really see if the genius tag that people put on Saleh when he was the defensive coordinator with the 49ers is one that he deserved. I'm not trying to downplay him as a defensive coordinator, but like I said, he's got his hands full, bro.
You know, when we were talking about the Raiders and how evenly their pay was across the board, you know, and you go over here to the Jets, and 1, 2, 3, 4 of the people that I looked at, Bleshwan, Bryce Hall, Javelin Guidry, and Corey Ballantyne, all under $1 million. Ashton Davis, just over $1 million. Out of their total of 15.1 million, Marcus May, 10.6 of it.
Exactly. He's the star of the secondary. He's the main guy back there. He's calling the shots. He's making the plays. Whatever they get out of the other guys is going to be gravy. This is going to be, it might not be pretty.
Wow. Wow. All right. Up next
is number 27. That's the Jacksonville Jaguars. How about that? Now, this is interesting. They're number 27. You go, okay, that's pretty low. Jacksonville Jaguars, they're okay. They're not that good. We don't expect them to be that good. What they have done over the last couple of years is to really address their secondary via the draft and through free agency. So cornerback C.J. Henderson was a first-round pick last year. The other corner is Shaquille Griffin. You know his name. He's a free agent, came over from the Seahawks. The strong safety is Rayshawn Jenkins. He's a free agent, came over from the Chargers. And the free safety is Gerard Wilson. He's the incumbent. So he's the one guy that stayed from the year before. However, his job looks like it's going to be challenged because they just drafted another rookie in the 3rd round. That's Andre Cisco. So you're going to hear all these names. Cisco could be a threat at one of the safety spots. Other than that, they've pretty much been meticulous about picking free agents and picking draft picks that they can plug and play. So Jacksonville may be moving up in the rankings here a little bit. It looks like they really, really put a lot of thought into what they did, and it's just up to the guys to perform on the field.
Well, you know, of the teams that we've talked about up to this point, Jacksonville has the largest total cap hit for the group. C.J. Henderson, Tyson Campbell, Andre Cisco, Shaquille Griffin, Rayshawn Jenkins, and Josh Jones are who I have totaled up here at 18 million, averaging about 3 million over that group. And the only people under $1 million are Andre Cisco and Josh Jones. Tyson Campbell's at 1.6, Rayshawn at 3.9, and then CJ and Shaquille is actually the highest paid, 5.8 of that group. So Shaquille, highest percentage of that group. That gentleman, we know he has speed and we know he's a ball hawk. So it's going to be interesting to see how that backfield gels. I mean, you just brought the Seahawks.
Yeah, they've been pretty meticulous. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed, but they seem to have gone out and gotten the players that they really wanted to put in particular positions. So you got 2 free agents, a 1st-round pick, and a 3rd-round pick who all have a great chance to be starters exactly where the Jacksonville Brass want them to be. So this could be a team or a secondary that shows a lot of improvement, but we shall see.
Who's up next?
Up next, number 26 is the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, I know it's low for them, but let's remember when you watched the Seahawks last year, early in the season, they were winning games just because it was the let Russ cook era beginning. But after that got dialed down a little bit, then their defensive secondary started to show some leaks. So, yeah, they had to address it. Here's another issue, and this is interesting, and this is the only time I really saw this. So they got Jamal Adams, and he plays strong safety. But the scheme that they used had him blitzing quite a bit. In fact, he was their most effective pass rusher from the strong safety spot. He led the team in sacks and hurries, was clearly their most effective pass rusher. I don't know if you can consistently win like that. In fact, I would venture to guess that you can't. If you're not getting anything from outside linebackers and your edge rushers, that's not a good deal, but that's where they're at. So
that was with Clowney. Clowney was there last year, right?
At least for part of the year, yes.
Yeah. I'm thinking, you bring that strong safety up, and I'm thinking, man, I know a play very specifically that would allow me to match my running back up on your linebacker, and my running back's a 94, 95 speed guy. So if I know you're not back there.
that correlates exactly with, not exactly, but almost exactly with what I was going to say next.
Wow.
As great a pass rusher as Jamal Adams was, he's nowhere near as good in coverage. So whether he's blitzing or he stays back in coverage, he's not that great. So that's a problem too. The free safety is Cadre Diggs, cornerback DJ Reed, and cornerback Akello Witherspoon, who came over in free agency from San Francisco.
I miss him already.
Yeah. That pretty much makes up the rest of the secondary. So I don't know how much better they're going to be. Shaquille Griffin is gone. I don't know what to say about these guys. I know they're looking for improvement. I'm looking for improvement from them too, because just, for fantasy purposes, I may have a couple of guys on the Seahawks offense if things work out for me. They're not looking real great right now. They're really not. They're going to depend a lot on Witherspoon, guy who came over from the Niners. We'll see. Again, we shall see.
That contract cap hit total has reached a new high. And again, funny that we talked about, the Jaguars bringing in the Seahawks, and next up is the Seahawks.
Right.
And we talked about some of the other teams that had a pretty evenly distributed cap hit. Seahawks total is 24 million. Jamal Adams is 9.8 of that. So he takes up a good portion, not exactly half, but a good portion of that cap is going to him. And you're saying he's not great at coverage. He needs to be great at all of it, or they could have a defense that kind of looked like it did last year, when early on, when it was, we were looking at them in the same, out the side of our eye, the same way we were looking at like Green Bay, for example. The Cowboys were way worse, but just that fair to Midland defense that you expected to be a lot stronger last year. And then they Jamal Adams, and they started playing a lot better in the later part of the season. So Akello Witherspoon at $4 million is the second highest paid. It's going to be interested to see how he can contribute in that defense. So Seahawks. Next up, above the Seahawks
is the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the fact that we live in Philadelphia, we know a lot of Eagles fans, and I would venture to guess that the majority of the complaints that Eagles fans get me about their team is about their defense and about their secondary. They love their defensive line, but they don't like their linebacking core, and they hate their secondary. And this has been going on for a few years now. So obviously they needed upgrades at corner and at safety. What did they do? They went out and signed free safety Anthony Harris away from the Vikings. And most recently, they signed cornerback Steven Nelson, who became a free agent after playing with the Steelers. Rodney McLeod is a whole McLeod. I'm sorry,
McLeod.
Rodney McLeod.
That was not a Freudian slip,
That was
was
not.
it?
No, it wasn't.
All right.
Rodney McLeod is a holdover. He's the strong safety, and of course, a couple of years ago they got Darius Slay to be a lockdown corner. He's not, in my estimation, the elite corner that he used to be, at least a couple of years ago, but he's still out there balling. So they're hoping that Nelson on one side and Slay on the other side can improve things. And then they brought in Anthony Harris to go with McLeod. That will be their secondary. And I'm sure Eagles fans have their fingers crossed.
Interesting that you said that about Darius Slay, because out of the 14.8 million total cap hit of that backfield, I have Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox, Zach McPherson, Anthony Harris, Rodney McLeod, and Steven Nelson. 6.6 of that 14 million is Darius Slay. He is by far he's like 3 times more, getting paid 3 times more than anybody else on that team.
Yeah,
so
he was still a stud.
That ain't good.
He was still a stud when they signed him, and they obviously signed him to a fairly long-term contract because they wanted to lock him up while he was a stud. But his production has fallen off just a little bit.
Wow, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. All right. Who do we have up next, sir?
Surprise, surprise. Number 24 is the Houston Texans. That is correct. The Houston Texans. New defensive coordinator, Lovie Smith.
All right, let me pause you for 1 second.
Okay.
Are you telling me
Yes.
that Pro Football Focus
Yes.
has the Houston Texans defense rated higher than the Philadelphia Eagles defense?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Lovie Smith is the defensive coordinator. He will be bringing his version of the old Tampa 2 defense to Vegas, and he'll have some pretty solid vets to work with. Bradley Roby and Desmond King provided pretty solid play last year, but King's coming over from the Chargers, but he was still solid while he was there, so he's a free agent now. He's coming over. There's a chance he will challenge Vernon Hargreaves, who was last year's starter. I believe he will. I really like him. And Hargreaves is not coming off of a great season. So I'm not trying to say, I look at the Eagles last year, look at Houston last year and all the mess that they went through, but yet somehow they're better. But they did try to address their situation, and they do have Lovie Smith coming in as a DC, probably bringing a brand new scheme. I don't think they ever played Tampa 2 before, so we'll see what happens there. Justin Reed was pretty solid last year, free safety, and the strong safety, Eric Murray, also played pretty solid. They weren't terrible. I don't think, obviously, Deshaun still played well as many losses as they took. I don't remember them really getting blown out. They were in games. So they did get solid play from most of their guys, and they tried to address some holes that they thought they would have, and maybe bring in somebody that they feel is going to fit the scheme as far as Lovie Smith is concerned. So that's it. Number 24, Houston Texans, trying to get better. Got some veterans. Name guys.
They paid them. They paid them.
Yeah.
They have a $29.3 million backfield there.
Name guys. They supposed to get paid.
The 2 highest paid are Bradley Roby at 10.2 and Eric Murray at 7.4. Nicely distributed beyond that. Justin Reed 2.6, Desmond 3.1, Vernon Hargreaves 2, and Terrence Mitchell 3.7. So not a bad, distribution there. Again, Bradley Roby and Eric Murray are the 2 top dogs in that backfield relative to their cap hit this year. So I'm still, maybe I need to just even think about the fact that they've got the Texans ahead of not just the Eagles, but the Seahawks.
Yeah. Well, again, they weren't that bad last year. I would venture to guess that if you just said, let's compare every secondary's 2020 season, that they would still be ahead of the Eagles and the Seahawks. Those two groups did not play well. So you can't necessarily go by wins and losses, but actual play of the group. And if you go by actual play of the group, the Texans group was better. And now they may be improved even more if they take to Lovie Smith as their defensive coordinator and start to handle that two deep zone that Lovie's going to bring in. So, we'll see. Pro Football Focus seems to think so, obviously.
And again, an interesting situation here when you're looking at the defensive backfield, you're looking at Lovie Smith, you're looking at an African-American head coach first year, and all of the changes that that Houston has gone through, and the quarterback still wants out or claims to still want out. I thought that it was strange when I saw the changes and he was talking about wanting out. And I was like, why would you want out now? I mean, it just seems like if there was a time that, things are changing and you might have some real opportunity to compete with this team, and then you want out, then with his legal issues, that complicates the whole matter. But just on a pure football perspective, I just didn't understand it. I mean, do you have any other perspective there?
The only perspective I can think of is that he actually said that he wanted out before all these changes started getting made. So I don't think he wanted to turn back around and say, you know what, I changed my mind. That the changes and the legal stuff all kind of came bang, bang, bang. You know what I'm saying? But he had already made up his mind, kind of on a real lower level Aaron Rodgers type thing.
Yeah, I thought about that.
You're getting rid of talented players that he liked and played well for them and looked good working with him. They were getting rid of these dudes left and right. And I think he probably said something about it and got ignored. And Deshaun Watson is arguably a top 5 quarterback in this league. He felt
wanted a little more of that respect thing, eh?
That's right. That's the way I see it, absolutely. And I believe he deserved it.
Well, his upper management and even the ownership was what do they call it? A trash fire or something like that at one point.
Dumpster fire.
Fire.
I could think of some other, but yeah, we'll say dumpster fire and leave it at that. Yes, that's true. And that hasn't changed. The owner GM thing hasn't changed, I don't think.
But the decision making has, in terms of the coach, a lot of the players. And like I said, even when we look at this backfield, when they're, that they brought in. So, all right, we won't beat that up too much, but I just thought that was a strange, an interesting scenario with him wanting out. Okay. Who's up next? DB. Pro Football Focus. Ben, let me just say this real quick. For those people who are out there who don't even know that this is Ben and Barry on football, and that we can be found at www.benandbarryonfootball.com, which will take you to all of our social media and our podcast. And this show will be on the radio, WJRL953.com, Friday from 6 to 7:30. So with that being said, go for it.
Number 23 is the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers have been seriously looking at their secondary and trying to address some of its issues, especially in the last 2 drafts. They drafted strong safety Jeremy Chin. They also drafted cornerbacks J.C. Horn and Tony Page. Now, Horn will likely start at one of the cornerback spots opposite Dante Jackson, and Chin will probably start at strong safety along with veteran free safety Justin Burris. So they got an incumbent corner and an incumbent safety, and then they brought in a new corner, and a new safety that they're going to plug and play right off the bat. This could be interesting. Both of the rookies they brought in, Chin and Horn, were very highly rated in the draft, and they're going to be expected to come right in and start right away. And I'm very interested in seeing how Horn plays because he's supposed to be a real stud. Obviously, that's the son of Joe Horn, who back in the day played wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. So this is going to be a secondary to really watch. There's been a lot of changes in Carolina. They got Sam Darnold at quarterback now. McCaffrey will be coming back on the offensive side. So shoring up their secondary was something that was very important to them. And I expect this team to be improved.
Well, they don't have a lot of big contracts. They're pretty well evenly distributed. Total cap hit for the 6 players that I looked at: Chen, Pride, Horn, Jackson, Bouye, and Burris, 15.9, just under 16 million, averaging 2.6. And most, let me see, Bouye, Jackson, Jeremy Chin, they're under that 2.6. The only people over are J.C. Horn. He has the rookie contract, a top pick at 3.8, and Justin Burris at 4.8 is the highest paid. So they're pretty well distributed. Let's just see how that talent blends together, if they can bring that together.
Yeah, I forgot about A.J. Bouye. So there's a guy, they'll either fit him in at slot corner or he'll probably challenge for a starting position. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Bouye has played safety and corner. So this could be interesting. I believe this secondary is going to be much improved. I'm looking forward to watching the Carolina Panthers.
Looking forward. Okay. Yeah. I'm just intrigued to see, what they can put together. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at with them, All right. Who's up next?
Up next, number 22, we have the Arizona Cardinals. You'll probably, because this is a division rival for you, being a 49ers fan, I'm sure you're happy to see the Cardinals all the way down at number 22. However, you got to be careful because they may be improving. No, I'm just trying to scare you. This is something interesting that I got from Pro Football Focus. No team played cover one, which is basically man-to-man. No team played cover one defense more than the Cardinals. A change in that mindset looks to be in order. Did not work out well for them. They let Patrick Peterson go in free agency, which makes me think that they're going to try to continue to do it. And Patrick Peterson is not the man-to-man guy that he used to be. So they let him move on. That alone makes me think that they're going to continue with this same scheme. I don't think that's a good idea. They brought in 7-year vet Malcolm Butler, who I don't believe is a great man-to-man guy anymore. Byron Murphy, with only 2 seasons under his belt, and Robert Alford, who hasn't played a down in the last 2 seasons because of injuries. This might be turning into a little bit of a mess here. All those guys play corner now. They're pretty solid at safety. Free safety is Budda Baker. We know about Budda Baker. And there's going to be a competition at strong safety between Jalen Thompson, who's a 3rd-year player, and another 3rd-year player who is Deontay Thompson, too. So the 2 Thompsons are going to fight it out at the free safety position. I'm sorry, at the strong safety position. Budda Baker's cool where he is. And the corners, to me, don't look good. This could be a team that is dropping.
Wow. Well, they've got, not a bad split. I mean, Budda Baker's 7.7 million. They're averaging 3.6. So if that's a team that has a backfield that can be exploited, as a Niner fan, yeah, let's go get them. I'm good with it.
Mark that one on the calendar.
Who's up next?
Up next, number 21 is the Tennessee Titans. I like the Tennessee Titans as a team. I really do. And I think probably during the season last year, when we were going over the rankings and the games week by week, I mentioned quite a bit that if these guys just fix that defense, if they just get a stud pass rusher, if they just tighten up that secondary, this team could really excel. So let's see what we got here. First of all, they
Yeah.
released, excuse me?
I know I said, yeah, go ahead and say it. They got your boy.
They released both their starting cornerbacks. One was Malcolm Butler, who just mentioned went to the Cardinals. The other one was Adoree Jackson, who I liked. And they looked to be going young. Now, Adoree Jackson was playing well and got injured. I don't know what the problem there was that they felt like they could just release him. But as a Giants fan, thank you very much. So they're going to go with the youth movement. So cornerbacks Caleb Farley and Kristen Fulton, along with strong safety Amani Hooker, are all 22 years old, all three of them. With Farley and Hooker expected to be starters right off the bat, Kevin Byard is the free safety, and old man Janoris Jackrabbit Jenkins will be on one of the corners. So we got a lot of young guys competing for corner spots and safety spots. When it all shakes out, hopefully for their sake, somebody will beat out Janoris Jenkins. I got this thing about Janoris Jenkins.
That's why I've been laughing the whole time.
The guy is fast. His nickname is Jackrabbit. He's an extremely good athlete. I have never had a problem with him, even when he was on the Giants. But as a coach, when I watch close-ups of him covering receivers, his footwork is freaking horrible. His technique is really, really bad. If you're a kid out there and you're looking to be a defensive back, especially a corner, do not watch Janoris Jackrabbit Jenkins. Do not get advice from Janoris Jackrabbit Jenkins. That's all I got to say, okay? I'm not saying the guy's a bum. I'm not saying that. But he's a classic example of a guy who depends on his physical abilities as opposed to working on his craft and being tight technically with his footwork and those kind of things. So, that's just my personal, I think Tennessee will be better. But sometimes when teams go young and they go all in young, you're going to get hurt a little bit with inexperience. But over time, they're hoping that these guys will gel as a group. And that's quite possible that could happen. So Tennessee could be on the uprise. We'll see.
Tennessee is another one of those teams that has a outlier in terms of the contract cap hit. Total contract for them is 25.3 averaging million. Kevin Byard, is that correct?
Yes.
For this particular year, 2021, is 15 of the 25 million. So Janoris, for all his faults, is second paid at 4.6, almost 4.7 million. So he's getting paid. If he can straighten out that footwork, you never know what he could do, because you're right. His quickness, that's why they call him that. And then Caleb is at 2.4 and Christian Giovanni at just over $1 million. So 15 of the 25 is going to Kevin Byard. And it'll be interesting to see how the rest of these guys pick it up. But I know Kevin better pick it up, because they're paying him this year big time. All right, who is up next?
And not where I know this is not where you want your team to be. But yeah, number 20 is the San Francisco 49ers. Now, this doesn't sound good. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to say it's not going to turn out to be good. I'm just going to say it doesn't sound good. They didn't make any key investments in their secondary through the draft. Now, that being said, what they did do is they did re-sign 3 of their own free agents. So with all the free agents that were out there, and even just talking about the secondaries, there was a lot of free agent movement. the Niners had 3 guys that they refused to let go, and they actually got them re-signed. Because of injuries and what have you, this may have been an actual good move, but it remains to be seen. So, cornerbacks, Jason Verrett, who I like, and Quan Williams, who I also like, along with strong safety Jaquiski Tart, who's a pretty good athlete, flies around and hits, as well as, so those are the 3 guys that they re-signed. They also signed free safety Jimmy Ward to a 3-year extension. So that's a good thing too. So they seem to be kind of married to most of their guys. It looks like they're trying to hold on to them. I believe that's because they've shown that they've gelled as a group and they don't want the group to break up. They like who they have. They're not going to let injuries and what have you deter them from sticking with these guys. Now, cornerback Emmanuel Mosley was also re-signed to a 2-year deal. So he's going to be in the mix. Now, who starts where is going to be up for grabs here. So again, when you're looking for training camp stuff to talk about, you could talk about the secondary for the 49ers. Guys are going to be competing for jobs. That usually ends up being a good thing for the group when you have a lot of competition and guys fighting for starting spots. So I'm looking for the 49ers to actually improve.
You know,
barring health, they got to stay healthy.
Well, yes, that's definitely true.
You can say that for everybody, but you know.
$21.8 million backfield there. Big contract goes to Jimmy Ward at 10.9, just under 11 million. That's almost half. But again, a little different in this situation because you kept a group together. One guy got paid. And, you know, everyone else is kind of in the same area. Jason Verrett is second highest at 5.2 million. And interesting keeping this group together. I know, and just messing around with the game with Madden this week and working on some defenses, you've got the Seahawks with a running quarterback. You've got the Cardinals with a running quarterback. The Rams, not so much. You pretty much know Stafford's not really out there trying to do much of that, even though he could if he wanted to take off. You know, he could hurt you in situations. But when you look across the leagues, the quarterbacks are so much more athletic. You look at the Eagles, you look at the, you know, if the Texans had Deshaun, you know, you look, you know, at up and comers like in Chicago. We don't know if Justin Fields is going to be, you know, starting or not. They did have a camp highlight of him taking off, you know, and they were kind of pumping up his wheels. One of the comments underneath said that he had a man open underneath when he took off. So, but the reason I bring that up is because your defenses have to be manned in such a way so that you can make those changes, you know, go from a 4 to a 5, you know, to a dime, and be able to handle the speed and athleticism of these running quarterbacks now as well as being able to handle the run. Because sometimes, you know, when you start, you know, playing around with the quarterback, you open up gaps for the running back. So, you know, it's interesting the type of defensive structure, back structure that you need to put together as this NFL is evolving with these running quarterbacks. Whether you like them or whether you don't like them, that's what you got. So that'll be interesting to see how we go. I never felt like we had like the type. I've seen my defense when you're up against certain receivers, top receivers get scorched. So I know that, you know, that where they kind of stand in many cases. But as a unit, especially if our front 8 is effective, then on that back end, you know, we can do some damage. They can pick the ball off. And I still want to bring back
Richard Sherman.
Richard Sherman. I make him a player coach. All right. Who's up next?
Up next, number 19 is the Chicago Bears. Okay, Chicago Bears. So, you know, people still respect Chicago Bears defense. Their secondary was not terrible. They're ranked by Pro Football Focus as number 19, which is getting close to the middle of the pack. So let's see what we got here as well. First off, longtime corner Kyle Fuller, who was a mainstay with the Bears, was released. He has been replaced by longtime corner mainstay for the Atlanta Falcons, Desmond Trufant. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's kind of a wash or what. I kind of preferred Fuller, but Trufant's had some really great seasons under his belt. Evidently, they feel like he still has the juice, so they made that move. The other corner will be manned by second-year guy, Jalen Johnson. Now, obviously young, but he's an up-and-comer. Was kind of up and down in his rookie year, but they put him in there and they put him out there. He had some splash plays. He got burned a couple of times, but they believe in him, so they're going to leave him out there. They got a 10-year vet, Tayshaun Gibson, at strong safety, and they got another veteran playing free safety. That's Eddie Jackson. So it's a pretty solid unit. Obviously, they want the guys to play a little better than they did last season, and if they do, they will definitely improve. If the young guy holds his own, then and Trufant still has some juice left, then this can be a pretty good secondary. The good thing for them is they got a pretty good front seven up front, which makes their jobs a little bit easier, but they're still going to have to handle their business. Not terrible, could be improved.
They have one of the least expensive backfields of the group that we've been talking about, where everybody else was up in the 20s. They're at total at 11 million for that group, with Eddie Jackson at 5 million of that 11 million. So to be as high as they are, that, you know, with those contracts, it'll be interesting to see.
You have two numbers?
A mil, 1.075.
I'm beginning to wonder, and of course, you know, you did the money part of this thing. I didn't. I'm beginning to wonder if, in fact, Trufant, they're looking at Trufant as a cheaper Kyle Fuller. They may, if they had kept Kyle Fuller, they may have had to pay him more. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's because you don't let a guy like Kyle Fuller go, to me, but unless it's a money issue. But that's just speculation on my part, but that's what I'm thinking. Because when I look at them as players, it's almost an even swap, you know? So I'm trying to think, what's the difference? And they didn't try to trade him. They released him. So, you know,
wow.
Makes you wonder.
Yeah. That's a question mark, big question mark. All right. There's some question marks about this defense coming up, or is there?
Interesting. Number 18, the Kansas City Chiefs, fresh off a Super Bowl in which their defensive secondary didn't have a great game. They weren't terrible. I'm not going to blame the game on their secondary, but they did not have a great Super Bowl. Now, here's the bright side for them. They got super lucky last year when they drafted cornerback L'Jarius Sneed, because they got him in the 4th round. And this guy actually finished the season as the best rookie cover corner in the league. So you plug and play a guy that you get in the 4th round and he excels like that, that's a big deal. They let Bashad Breeland go, and I thought he was going to be there for a long time. He's now with Minnesota. So Snead becomes a full-time starter because Snead played a little outside in the traditional corner spot. They also used him as a slot corner sometimes. They did a lot of things on defense in Kansas City, because I remember seeing Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, playing in slot corner every once in a while. But, you know, now Snead's going to become a full-time starter, which he deserves. Charvarius Ward will man the other corner, but he's only got 3 years experience. So this is going to be interesting. I know they're going to lean very heavily on Snead, and obviously Tyrann Mathieu is a mainstay at the strong safety spot. He's the big name guy there. I don't know. I'm thinking Kansas City might need to make another move or two to shore up this secondary. I don't know. It doesn't look real good to me.
I don't know what their total cap space is. Their backfield that I have listed here, which includes Tyron, Snead, Ward, Fenton, Baker, and Hughes, totals 27.6 million. Tyron is 19.7 by himself.
Yeah, he's obviously the star of the group. And if Snead continues to play the way he started out, they're going to be hitting him up with a pretty nice contract in the next couple of years too. But those other guys, some of those other guys you mentioned are like backup dudes, you know?
I got the feeling, and I'm not quite sure that the Chiefs could have maybe took a bigger cap hit on Tyron than they did this year, but I think they might have went on and paid their dues this year, which might free up that contract because L'Jarius is only making $938,000.
Right.
You know, highest paid second is Shavarius Ward at 3.3, and then Mike Hughes at 1.8. Everybody else is in the 800,000 range. So interesting that almost 20 of 27,000 is all focused on one guy, but we know he's the man, but he is one guy, so that's an interesting disproportion there. So okay, we shall see what's up. All right, we're about rolling to the last. What we got? 2 left.
Yeah, we got 2 left. We're at number 17, and that happens to be the New Orleans Saints. I remember last season as we were going through the rankings and going through the games week by week, I mentioned quite a bit that the New Orleans Saints defense as a whole was much improved. I don't know how that's going to work out for them this year. They got a little bit of trouble maybe brewing at corner. Rookie 3rd round pick Paulson Adebo will be expected to start right away. That could or maybe not be a good thing. It all depends. He's a 3rd round pick. I don't know if the guy slid in the draft or they're just taking a flyer on this dude. But if they're going to plug and play him right away, they're going to expect him to play really well. On the other side, you got a veteran. That's Marshawn Lattimore. Everybody knows that name. Guy's been a stud for years. His play did fall off a little bit last year, but when you're as good a player as he is, a little drop off means you're still really good. He's still a top-notch cover guy. Forget that, man. There's nothing wrong with Lattimore. Free safety is Marcus Williams. He's a stud, okay? He's a really good free safety. And yes, Eagles fans, Malcolm Jenkins is still around. So this looks like, on the surface, a pretty solid unit. What they're hoping for is they get a lot out of a 4th round pick rookie and a little more from a solid stud veteran who had a little off year last year. If those 2 things happen, Saints will be right up there again. They'll be much higher than number 17, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I can see that. That's a $24 million backfield there. Marcus Williams is the big man at 10.6 million in terms of his contracts. Malcolm Jenkins at 5 million. Not bad. Hang in there, Malcolm. Make that money, baby. Make that money. So yeah, there'll be an interesting backfield to go up against. Looking forward to that. All right. This is the what's this, number 16 coming up?
Number 16, yes, sir. Middle of the road here. 16 is pretty good ranking. You could probably do better, or you may do a little worse. But if you ranked at 16 by Pro Football Focus, I would say that shines a pretty nice light on you. We're talking about the Minnesota Vikings. Now, some teams, you could look at some teams and look at their secondary groups and say, oh, yeah, they need to improve. Like when you're talking about Dallas or you're talking about the Falcons. You might look at some other teams and say, oh, they weren't that bad. They might be a player away here or there, okay? But what they actually do in the offseason to improve, or what they don't do to improve, means a lot. The Minnesota Vikings brought in 3 new DBs in free agency. So they're trying to make moves. They're trying to improve. This is what they did. They brought in cornerback Patrick Peterson from the Cardinals. They brought in Bashaud Breeland from the Chiefs. And they brought in free safety Xavier Woods from the Cowboys. And I think Xavier Woods was one of the better DBs that the Cowboys had, even though they were ranked so low. So that's 3 major moves right there. All 3 of those guys will probably start along with trusty strong safety Harrison Smith. I think they got a nice little group here now. I don't know how much Patrick Peterson's got left, but if the Vikings made this move after seeing how Peterson played last year and almost an exclusive man-to-man defense where he didn't grade very highly, and they're playing a more zone-friendly, or I shouldn't say zone-friendly, but more zone, okay, which would be friendlier to a corner like Peterson, he could excel there, okay? He's got the experience. He could still play, obviously. I don't remember him having any really bad injuries or anything, so he should still be solid. This could end up being a really, really good secondary, and I can't help it. When you got a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, you got to have a reliable secondary.
No, not you.
We reference Kirk Cousins like every week. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. Isn't that something?
Oh man, you gotta love him, man. Let's face it. I wish I could steal money at that level. Jimmy Christmas. But no, because I was thinking about that game I told you about last week when I was like playing Madden, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, it's the Vikings, Kirk Cousins. I can expect 1 or 2 brain farts. Man, let me tell you, we caught him a couple times on some blitzes and dropped him 12, 15 yards back. It meant everything. So,
I mean, when you look at the Vikings, I don't want to go on and on about them, but this is the last team we're going to talk about today, and then we're going to do the top 15 next week. But when you look at a team like them, they want to run the ball. They got Dalvin Cook. You know what I mean? I forget where we had their offensive line ranked, but I thought it was fairly high. You got Dalvin Cook, you want to run the ball. But if you get in a game where it becomes a shootout, you want your defensive secondary to be able to hold their own, to slow down top-notch pass receivers, top-notch quarterbacks. You know what I mean? So you can keep Kirk Cousins in the doggone game, right? Yes, they've addressed their lack of weapons that, well, I'm not going to say lack. I shouldn't say lack of weapons. They had Stephon Diggs. They let him go. They brought in Justin Jefferson. They had Kyle Rudolph. They let him go. They're going to go with Irv Smith. So offensively, yeah, they're trying to stay on top of things. But again, when you're a run-centric team and you get in a game against a team that has a strong quarterback or a strong receiving core, and it's a scoring battle, usually the team with the stronger secondary that makes those key stops, or that key stop, is the team that's going to win the game. So that's where the Vikings are trying to get to.
$24 million backfield there.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison Smith is 10 million of it. Patrick Peterson is 8.
Yep.
Everybody else is down 2.7 or under. Bashaud Breeland is the 2.7. So that's an interesting backfield. You got 2 very highly paid players there, and everybody else is going to be fighting for good contracts or be able to upgrade those contracts. So Vikings with Kirk Cousins right in the middle, right where Kirk Cousins belongs, in the middle of the pack. And we like to mess with Kirk Cousins, but I don't think anybody can mess with his money because he probably has it all stuffed right under that mattress. It ain't going nowhere.
All guaranteed.
Guaranteed. Yes. All right, Benny, before we wrap up anything, tonight is the Hall of Fame game. We will not see the starting quarterbacks in either game. It is an exhibition game. You're not a big fan of exhibitions.
No, I'm
But
not.
is there anything you would like to see out of this game? Is there anybody that you'd like to be able to take a look at?
Well, it's funny, but I talked about the Cowboys secondary. A lot of competition going on, especially at the corner position. They're going to be throwing guys out there and see what they can do. So I want to see these guys knock down passes, get interceptions, cover receivers tight. The Steelers receiver core is young. They'll probably all play at least a couple series or at least a half. So I'm talking about Deontay Johnson, the kid Claypool. Those guys are going to be out there. So it's going to be some challenges for the guys playing in the secondary for the Cowboys. If I was going to watch anything closely, that's what it would be.
I just am interested in the backup quarterbacks at all times because
Who's the Cowboys backup?
I don't even know.
Oh, you know,
I don't even know.
That makes it more interesting because I got to see who it is.
I got to find out who it is. Because you and I, me, I have somewhat of a disparaging attitude toward the backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I just don't, again, when the top guy goes down, does the team sink or are they able to hang in there Nick Foles like and continue to compete?
Well, guess what? It could be the Dwayne Haskins show. If you're interested in anything, Dwayne Haskins is now the backup to Ben Roethlisberger at the Steelers. I am extremely interested in seeing how he does. I think he's going to get lots of work in the preseason. Even if he doesn't play a lot tonight, in the upcoming preseason games, I think we're going to see quite a bit out of him. And he's going to prove whether or not he is an improved player now that he's with the Steelers. Sometimes a change of scenery can mean everything. And if he does play well, he could be the Steelers quarterback of the future.
So you think the Steelers have pretty much given up on, what's his name? The guy that got into the fight?
Yeah. He sucks.
He's still there, though.
I could care less.
No, it's not a matter of whether we care. It's just a question of why is he still there?
Because he knows the system and he won a game or two.
Jeez, come on.
But you can't just. Are you really going to spend a lot of time and money trying to figure out what you want to do with the third string quarterback?
He was the backup. Okay. Now, there's still a big question.
He was the backup. He was the backup, and they took a dude who was almost a complete failure with another team and brought him over. So what does that tell you about he used to be the backup? Get him out of here.
Steelers, find a competent backup. Cowboys, find a competent backup.
One. They think they have one. You think they have one? I think they have one. I think Dwayne Haskins. Listen, I was the worst critic of Dwayne Haskins when he came out in the draft.
Okay.
They had him ranked high, and I was like, no, he ain't that good. This guy had one good year in college, and he was surrounded by stud players. I don't trust him. And they took him high, and he bombed. Now, most of that was on him. He was immature. He didn't properly prepare and all that. Now he's got to change the scenery. Okay. He's got a different head coach. He's got different coordinators. The physical skills are all there. His problem's up here. They fix that with help from him trying to get serious and become more mature. This kid could light it up. I'm going to back him now. I'm got my fingers crossed.
Okay. All right. That's the game. But this weekend is the ceremony, correct?
The Hall of Fame.
All right. Who's going in that's going to make you cry? Go ahead. Tell me who it is.
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly everybody's going in.
Calvin Johnson.
Now, okay, Calvin Johnson. First of all, Calvin Johnson. Now, you know you've watched Hall of Fame speeches. That when they go around thanking people, they always thank the organization and the coaches and the this and the that. I get the feeling Calvin Johnson may not go that route. I don't think he enjoyed his time with the Lions. I mean, he enjoyed being on the field. I think he enjoyed his teammates. I think he enjoyed his success. But organization-wise, he was not a happy camper. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he says when it comes time to start. You know, they usually start my high school coach and da-da-da-da. Yeah, I can't wait to see that. I saw a little blurb about Peyton Manning saying his speech is only going to be 6 minutes long. But you know, Peyton's a joker, so that'll be interesting. Charles Woodson.
Go ahead. Who'd you say?
Charles Woodson will probably give a really great speech.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know if it's going to be a tearjerker because I kind of heard his story already. He did 30 for 30 on him. You know what I mean? He's been good for a really long time. I don't know. He's going to have to come up with some new stuff to really get to me. You know, who else? Who am I missing?
Now, I should probably be the one ready to drop a tear when John Lynch gets up and gives his speech, considering he is now my GM.
Okay.
But, you know, we all just like John Lynch, the way he would blast people back in the day. So
yeah, but he might. John Lynch is one of those guys. See, usually it's the guys that you don't know a whole lot about their backstory and all. They're the ones that get you. Because they come out with stuff. You know, we thought we knew Charles Haley. And he got up there and started talking about all the stuff he went through. And I was like, wow. You know, I just thought the guy was crazy. But he was like crazy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, John Lynch might be interesting.
We have Tom Flores from the Oakland Los Angeles Raiders, and the Seahawks.
Tom Flores, I think, will have a good story. Okay. Minority head coach, not a lot of fanfare. If I remember correctly, he was a player at one time. He was a quarterback. I believe he played for the Raiders a year or two. Yeah, his name, you know, it's been years since he's been around, so I can't quite clearly remember, but I bet he's going to have some interesting things to say.
Anybody who played under Al Davis or coached under Al Davis, either one,
have something. Yeah,
it's going to have.
That's true.
Now, Bill Nunn is a name that comes up that I recognize, a scout, a personnel executive. You might have a little more on him than I do. It says the Steelers drafted in 74 alone, and Nunn's role in it was probably more than enough to get him in the Hall of Fame. So that Steelers 74 draft, he was a part of. Oh, I know what it was. This is why it was.
Right?
He's a black man, and he became an evaluator for the Steelers, and he would go to the historically black colleges. That's where he brought it all together.
Okay, his story's got to be crazy good. I can't wait to hear what he has to say. This guy was responsible probably for like Mel Blount and Mean Joe Green and all those dudes. Oh yeah, definitely. This guy had a hand in building the steel curtain.
It is.
That's big.
He has Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, Jack Lambert, Mike Webster, and Donnie Shell.
Donnie Torpedo Shell.
Oh my goodness. He's got Mel Blount.
I knew it.
So yeah, that in and of itself, as you start to think about, now you talk about some stories. Wow.
Right.
Especially now that the NFL has all of these Hall of Famers going back to coach in historically black colleges and universities, and getting paid money and bringing a whole nother mindset. And I know we talked about Deion saying, my players now expect that they're going to be looked at to go into the NFL, you know?
Right.
So, wow, that's a big one. Okay. Drew Pearson.
Oh, Drew Pearson. I always liked Drew Pearson because, you know, I was young. I was probably still playing then when he was playing. I liked Drew Pearson as a wide receiver. I didn't like the Cowboys, but I like Drew Pearson. I don't have anything bad to say about Drew Pearson. His story should be interesting. I don't know a whole lot about him off the field or any of that stuff. So I can't even remember what college he went to.
Well, the original Hail Mary.
Yeah, that's
the catch against the Vikings from Roger the Dodger. That but everybody couldn't believe that he actually caught that ball. He turned around and because the defender was right there. We thought it was an interception. Next thing we know, he's rolling backwards into the end zone or just stepping backwards. So that catch in and of itself is one of those highlights of football that's going to be on every highlight film from now on. No doubt about it.
Was it offensive pass interference or not?
Oh, listen to you. I'm not. No, I think it was cool. You think it was cool?
I think it was cool. I don't think I think the guy just fell.
Okay.
That's the way it looked to me. He just fell. But yeah, Drew Pearson should be interesting to hear about him. Yes.
All right. There is a HBCU Hall of Fame game that's going to be played a little later. I think that's a September game that's going to be played at the Hall of Fame field, kind of connected to the whole Hall of Fame thing, but not happening during the same week. So we'll come back and we'll take a look at that game, you know, for its Hall of Fame connections and things of that nature. That's something that the NFL has started doing, is bringing that in as a part. So, all right, Mr. Dickerson, good work, man. Good research. You know, I hope we brought something, you know, valuable to both our casual fans and our football nerds, you know, and I'm going to be putting in some specific work. So look to hear a little bit from the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus reports. I want to take a look at how we left off last year and what's coming up, you know, for the final year. And we'll look at maybe that Pro Football Focus power rankings after we finish up with the DBs next week.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking to myself, let's hang on to that particular article from Pro Football Focus. Take a look at their power rankings. And although I always mention when we're going over the position groups that it's the rankings from Pro Football Focus and not necessarily mine, I don't totally agree. I'd like to kind of get a little back and forth between you and me and Pro Football Focus with their power rankings. And let's see who we do agree with and who we don't.
All right.
So that's something to look forward to.
All right. I got my boxing gloves on, man. I'm ready. All right. You got it. Last word.
Yeah. Top 15 defensive backfield groups next week. And the week after that, the one everybody's been waiting for, the wide receiver cores. Other than that, go Noles.